Welcome to another Pit Stop, AFC South Pit Stop to be exact. I am your host, Mike Patton. This is, of course, an impromptu episode, of course, and it was some big news coming out of Titans camp that Harold Landry is not a Titan anymore. Harold Landry is not a Titan anymore. Well, if you heard the news in the past couple weeks, you heard that Harold Landry was actually, he came to agreement with the team to kind of look around for, to seek a trade. So with that being said, of course, I guess he must not have been able to find a trade that would take on his contract. We're going to get into those numbers in a second, but, now he has been released from the Tennessee Titans. Of course, it's 7 years he was with the team, and so unfortunately, it doesn't always end with a player retiring with one team. Now, let's get into the numbers behind this one. Now, of course, this is the AFC South Pit Stop. It will be commercial free. It is exclusively on YouTube. You can't find it anywhere else but on YouTube. So go ahead and subscribe, click the bell. You'll catch all the episodes here and the AFC South episodes and This One Works podcast as well. You can catch all those things right here at the Mike Patton Network. But let's get into the numbers for Harold Landry being cut. Now, he was set to be paid $17.5 million this year, this season. Of course, count $24.05 million against the salary cap for the Tennessee Titans. He was being paid like a prime pass rusher, essentially. But, if you look at the production, he's had a couple years, 2021, 2023. He missed 2022 with a torn ACL, of course. He tore it in training camp, where he was over 10 sacks. He had 10.5 in 2023 when he came back from the ACL. Before that, he had 12 sacks in 2021. So, you can say he wasn't a game-changing pass rusher. Was he a solid pass rusher? Yes, definitely was. But can you say he's a game-changing pass rusher? No, you really cannot say he really is a guy that just changes the game every time he steps on the field or draws that kind of attention out there. Basically you can't really say he's a number one edge rusher, basically a guy that changes the game, rushing off the edge and commands double teams and all those different things. So with that being said, it's easily justifiable why the Titans want to get rid of this big number in terms of an outside linebacker and an edge rusher in terms of Harold Landry. Now, I know it's no offense to Harold Landry. Harold Landry is a solid pass rusher. I'm just not sure he's a number one pass rusher, a guy that changes the game. So with that being said, totally understand why the Titans decided to move this way in this fashion. Now, the big thing here is they cut him before June 1st. And, of course, that's big because the Titans basically exercised an option in Landry's contract where they could cut him after 3 years in a 5-year deal. And, of course, just give you a heads up, he did sign a 5-year, $87.5 million deal in 2022 with $19 million guaranteed. 35 million guaranteed at signing and a $19 million signing bonus. So with minimal salary cap penalty is the 3 years when they cut him when he completed his 3 years, you basically could cut him with minimum salary cap a hit. With that being said, of course, just to give you a little bit of the numbers, he's going to count basically say $10.9 million against the cap. They have they basically have $13.1 million in dead cap. So not a huge hit when it comes to dead cap for the Titans. And overall, with this cut being made, the Titans also now have over $60 million in cap space. We're going to get into that and talk about what they're going to do with that cap space potentially, or just I have some ideas just for maybe replacing Harold Landry in a second. But I do want to get into what's important for Harold Landry, and that's what's next. Of course, plenty are throwing out different teams and names and things like that. But honestly, to me, 3 teams make sense. Two of them more for winning purposes, one of them for connection purposes. We're going to get into the winning purposes first. That would be the first one's going to be the Detroit Lions. Now, keep in mind, he's going to be 29 before the season starts. So he's still at an age where he can still wants to get paid, but he also wants to, of course, be probably wants to be in a winning situation. So, I guess I'm kind of stepping into his mind space. He may be something different. So if he wants to win and make good money, one of the best options out there is Detroit. The Detroit Lions got to be number one on that board. I mean, you have Aiden Hutchinson coming back next year. He was horrific injury. He was getting a sack and his leg whipped around. It basically just snapped in half. Yeah, it's ugly. You don't want to Google that or look on YouTube or anything for that. Nah. Especially if you're squeamish. But this opportunity would put Landry on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson, who is well on his way to recovery and being back on the football field next year, by the way. With that being the case, Aiden Hutchinson is going to draw more of the attention, which means Landry gets probably one-on-ones versus the number 2 tackle, essentially. So honestly, he could have a big year opposite of Aiden Hutchinson if he goes to Detroit. Of course, that would be, I think, at least 10 to 12 sacks at the least for him if that was to happen. Of course, it definitely would have a chance to win a Super Bowl with all they have assembled there in Detroit. Coach Campbell up there, the mantra that he has, going for it on fourth downs and doing things a little bit unconventionally, but still making them work. I think that Harold Landry would fit that team in exactly what they need in terms of being an additional pass rusher, because last year so many people got injured. They just lacked a pass rush. And with, Aiden Hutchinson being that he could, come right back to form next year. You throw Harold Landry on the other side, now you're talking about some things, and they can be a pretty brutal sack duo coming off the edges. It would be switched from a 3-4 to a 4-3 for Landry, but I'm pretty sure he's used to putting his hand in the dirt at this point. Another team that could be looking at him is the Washington Commanders. Now, the Washington Commanders do have $64.4 million in cap space. Gives them a pass rusher they need. Of course, their best pass rusher last season was Dante Fowler Jr. Of course, he led them with 10.5 sacks, and he also is a free agent. So, what if they are able to sign Dante Fowler Jr. and bring in Harold Landry? That would be a pretty good addition for them. Give them, another weapon off the edge instead of, bringing Frankie Louvu or whoever to try to, blitz and all those different things, because that doesn't necessarily all the time work. You need a proven pass rusher up there. And Harold Landry, no matter if he's a number 1 or a number 2 pass rusher, is a guy that's proven he can get some things done. So, and then that team also, they're in a window where they're trying to win a title with a rookie quarterback. They came pretty close to making the Super Bowl. Well, the final score wasn't close, by the way. That's not any shots, Commanders fans. Just was saying what it was. But what I will say is that he could definitely add to this defense. They need more pieces, and Dan Quinn is a coach that fits Landry in terms of Landry is an effort guy, a hustle guy. Dan Quinn is a guy that's definitely going to pull, on those different things from him, as well as put him in positions to succeed, as well. Not to say he's Micah Landry, Micah Parsons. There we go. Not to say he's Micah Parsons, but he definitely can have an effect on this defense. Again, not Micah Parsons. I'm not saying Harold Landry is. He isn't. Okay. Now, the last one is more of a one that where people know you at the place where you would be going, and that would be the New England Patriots. Now, the New England Patriots do have a lot of cap space, and Harold Landry is definitely familiar with their head coach. Who would that be? Mike Vrabel. Yes, Mike Vrabel is the new head coach of the New England Patriots, former Tennessee Titans head coach, and he would be very, very familiar with him. Of course, the defensive line coach with the Titans for a while, now who's the defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, Terrell Williams. very familiar with Harold Landry. So you see the connections there. That could potentially happen. Plus, they be paying him as well. So, they do have some deep pockets up there in New England this offseason. So you never know. He could go for that. I will say, besides the Bills, the other two teams in the division, the Dolphins and the Jets, it isn't like they're just like, the toughest teams to beat. It could potentially happen and they could turn it around pretty quickly, with New England. You never know because Vrabel is one heck of a coach. You can say what you want about all the other things in terms of if he's this or did he want too much power or did he do this or do that or whatever. You can say whatever you want, but you will not say that man will be out coached all the time because that simply is not true. So those are the three teams. Just recapping, we got the Detroit Lions, I've got the Washington Commanders, and I've got the New England Patriots as the teams to look for when it comes to Harold Landry and where he might go next. Now, to finish everything up, also got to mention, where do the Titans go at pass rusher? Now, of course, I took it upon myself to accumulate three players that potentially could land here. Now, if you do not remember, the Titans have over $60 million of cap space. So they got some money to play with this offseason. It didn't seem that way. Of course, they spent $228 million combined in contracts, but you also got to understand a lot of these contracts are toilet paper. You need to look for the guaranteed money. Toilet paper, one-ply toilet paper, that's just the artificial numbers for a contract. That's what I call them. The 228, I believe, is the artificial numbers, not necessarily the real numbers with the guaranteed money. Now, as far as the pass rushers, take a ride with me real quick. We're going to go through these. One of them, I put Dante Fowler Jr. on there. Now, I do think he's potentially going to go back to the Washington Commanders because they need pass rushers. But, he's a hustle guy. I honestly, maybe a 2-year deal, perhaps at the longest, 2, maybe 3 years, 2, maybe 3. I don't know. I would say 2 would be pushing it for me. But he definitely is a guy. He had a big year under Dan Quinn last year. Like I mentioned, led him in sacks, 10.5 sacks. And he is a guy that definitely can make some things happen. Now, earlier on in his career, people wondered whether he would make it this long in the NFL, but he's proven to have staying power. He's going to be a guy that's going to rush the power passer and provide a few different things there. Is he quite the game changer? Not necessarily, but he's going to be a cheaper version of what you're trying to recreate there off the edge. So that could be something the Titans potentially could think about. I will say again, I have not talked to the Tennessee Titans about what they're going to do in free agency. I'm just looking at things and providing answers and maybe some solutions that may or may not happen. Simply an observation, simply looking at resolution. That's all. The other pick, Hassan Reddick. Now, I've mentioned him before. I mentioned him when, Harold Landry was on the trading block or talked about, searching for a trade. He's a guy that sat out last season, essentially most of the season. He only had 1 sack last year, but you got to put together, he had 4 sacks. He had 4 seasons where he had double digits in sacks, and I believe it was with 3 different teams. So, hey, the man knows what he's doing when it comes to rushing the quarterback. It doesn't matter what scheme or whatever it may be. He's going to find a way. And now, of course, he did this in a 3-4 and a 4-3 as well. So he's a very versatile piece. He would bring that guy that's a game changer, in my opinion. I believe he is a guy that definitely is a game changer. In my opinion, he's, can be a dynamic pass rusher. And, he's a year older than Landry. And, I know some people will hold that against him. But I do think he can be a game changer, especially with the attention that T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons will be drawing inside the interior of that defense for the Titans. So the more attention they draw, the more one-on-ones you get for Mr. Hassan Reddick, and that is scary times indeed. Now, the last guy I want to bring up, Josh Sweat, defensive end from Philadelphia. Now, he's a big guy. He's like 6'5", but he's the younger of all three, 27 years old. He's only had double-digit sacks once. I will say that that's something to look at. However, he was playing in a rotation in Philly. I believe he only had once. No, no, he had. I believe he had 8.5. I'm sorry. He maybe had may have 8.5. I could be wrong there, but anyway, um, he definitely is a 3-4. He'd be new to the 3-4, being a outside linebacker, and that's a pretty big guy at 6'5" to be an outside linebacker. But he definitely could put his hand in the dirt and rush the passer as well. So that would be an issue, but he's a young guy, younger than the other two options that I mentioned. And do I think he can evolve into something that could potentially help off the edge in a 3-4 defense? Yes, I do think he can, and it is very, very possible that he could do so. But we'll see what happens when it comes to those picks and those pickups, I should say, in free agency. The last thing I want to talk about, of course, they're going to go into the draft. They're probably going to pick up somebody there. They do also have Jalen Harold from last year, Arden Key from last year as well. They have a few pieces around that are still around, just not that one guy. It's going to be like, okay, cool. You got to account for me. If you don't account for me, I'm going to wreck your whole offense. They don't have that one guy off the edge to do that. Now, I'm not saying they don't. Jeffrey Simmons can be a pretty disruptive figure. When he's on top of it on his A game. But off the edge, you need more game changers. You need a game changer. And quite simply, I'm not sure that Harold Landry would have been that for them. So now they move on. Another Titan, long-standing Titan is gone. Will there be more? We don't know. But what we do know is touring the AFC South and the pit stops will always be here. I'm always going to be your host, Mike Patton. You can follow me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePaton 82. You can also find it on Blue Sky. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. Of course, you can find the pit stop exclusively on YouTube, exclusively. So click the button, click the bell, go ahead and sign up so you don't miss any episodes. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of the Pit Stop. Touring the AFC South presents the AFC South Pit Stop. We're out. Peace.